Grand Rising. Today is a potent and powerful day here in the United States. It is election day. And this morning I was in a prayer circle in a lovely spiritual community that I am sort of new to. And it's an online thing in Bright. And early this morning we had a prayer circle for the world and the collective, and just for everybody feeling all the things. And about maybe 5-10 minutes in, as the gal who was leading it was speaking, she was talking about, the power of this time and the worry that some people are in, and the lots of fear and anxiety, and how this time represents the divine feminine uprising and the patriarchy falling, and was talking about a woman of color, and and it dawned on me what the situation was, and I went, oh, and there was 5-6 different levels of awareness of oh, this is what's happening here. Oh, this is what they're inside of. This is their view. This is their reality. And at first I was just sort of really kind of shocked. And then I was a bit taken aback. And then I had a moment of fear because I have been kicked out of all the mainstream circles in 2020 when I did not go along with the mainstream agenda. I was very quickly removed from any spaces that were still towing that line. And so in realizing, here I am within this very large group of women who very much believe passionately about one specific thing that I see very differently. I had fear come up, and then the thing that took over, and the thing that washed over me, was just such deep compassion for them, for the situation that they are in, for the perception that they are inside of, for the reality that they are living in, because I so deeply remember how it felt to be in that space 8 years ago in 2016. It's just feels like lifetimes ago. But I remember waking up after the election in 2016 and feeling heartbroken and just devastated, because in my perception in that time, hate had won and division had won. And I had a very young daughter who was half Black, and it was all that, there was so much coming from what I can see now to be very different than I thought it was. But it felt like hate had won, and it felt like I couldn't believe I lived in a world where it was possible for that to have won. And so I so resonate with what they are feeling. And also at that time, thank Goddess, I had already began my spiritual journey, and I had a lovely mentor who was connected to the divine in a very real way. And at that point I was not. And she sent a message out to her community that all was not as it seems, and that everything would be okay, and that just to trust the process, and that this is not what it seems. And that's the only message we got. And at that time I dove into just being in love and being of service, and just grieving and feeling my feelings, and just being in service to love, and whatever that looked like. And over the course of the next several years, I was shown bit by bit by bit, the more I grew and the more I healed and the more I was able to be aware and connected in my own self, small truths started coming out. And for me, the awakening was in 2020. I knew that what was being portrayed and what was being delivered to us was not accurate, because I know the intelligent design of my human body. I know that we don't get sick and we aren't susceptible in the way that we were being told. And there was so much fear, and that is never the path to follow, is the path of fear and control. And so in that time, that's when I had my massive awakening, and I asked higher wisdom, I asked spirit to show me, like, what is really happening here? Like, what is true? What is real? And bit by bit by bit, I was shown divine truth and Holy Mother. It was not pleasant. It was really the worst thing I've ever learned about humanity and our world, and also the best, because it gave me freedom. And now I can operate in the world from a place of divine sovereignty and power and divine truth and knowing. And I understand that the world that we think we're in is not the world that we are actually in. And so the biggest feeling for me this morning in that prayer circle, I just wanted to hug them all and hold them and tell them, oh, darlings, I love you so much. It is not what it seems. It is not what it seems. And the crows, they are such divine messengers. The message of the crow is co-create with spirit. And oh, that is so true. But we have to be connected and aware in order to do that. And I wanted to just hug them and hold them and be the messenger, just like I received the message of, it's not what it seems, and everything will be okay. And regardless of who gets elected, everything will be okay. And it is all happening for us. And there was a comment in that circle that, something about how a spiritual woman should vote. And it was not at all them telling. This was such a beautiful, and this was the other thing that I wanted to mention, is I was so taken aback by the acceptance in this community of allowing people to have other voice, that I could be so different and see something so differently and not be ousted, and that other people were able to have a voice, and that it was just met with such compassion and such allowance of each person being in their own truth and standing in their own knowing and taking action from that place. I just so honor that, because that is so different from the way things were in 2016. Even for me, I would have had so much judgment. I did have so much judgment. So much judgment. And it's just, hallelujah, how much I've healed since then. But it was so beautiful to see this group of women being where they are, accepting what is. And I just wanted to be able to tell them, just like I was told, it's all going to be okay. And the way that a spiritual woman would vote, and so back to my train of thought there, they weren't saying a spiritual woman should vote this way, but that was the perception by one of the gals, is that, oh my gosh, like I'm seeing that I'm on the outside of this, and I'm not voting how a spiritual woman should vote, because how a spiritual woman should vote, the perception was, by this one gal who felt differently, was that they should be voting for the divine feminine, and that looked very much in real life like, checking a box for the literal divine feminine. And so they felt like they were doing it wrong, and that they weren't honoring how a spiritual woman should vote. And what was amazing is the response from the community was to do what you must do, and all are welcome here. And that is just so beautiful and such a huge forward movement from, where we were. But also, wow, the crows are really coming with a message. Also, understanding that there is so much more going on here. And so the perspective that I'm looking at, so in this perspective, how a spiritual woman should vote is for the divine feminine candidate. And that would be, them winning would be taking down the patriarchy. And I thought, oh, wow, the way this has been crafted is just extraordinary, because I didn't even see that anyone was looking at it that way, because I am so outside of anything going on in the mainstream. I have no idea what people are doing. I have a very small circle, and I don't go out in people, and I'm very much just in spirit and in nature, and I have no idea what the collective is doing or what they're thinking. And so to understand that how a spiritual woman would vote is like for the divine feminine, and that that's how this appeared, is like that, a black woman going up against a white man, and the divine feminine versus the going down with the patriarchy. And I just so remember in 2016 feeling like, at that time it wasn't a black woman, but I remember feeling exactly how they felt, and feeling such a call for rightness and equality and for good, and just feeling so passionate about that. And now looking back, sitting where I sit, I just have so much compassion, so much compassion, because I see what it is like, and I remember what it is like being inside of that world. And to anyone who is there and needs solace or needs comfort or some grounding, it is all, regardless of who gets elected or selected, as some would say, it is all going to be so much better than you can possibly imagine. It is all so much different than you can possibly imagine. And everything will be okay. And the way that I believe a spiritual woman should vote, and the way that I won't tell anybody else what to do. Here's what I am doing. I am voting with my time, with my attention, with my dollars, with how I'm spending, who I'm spending time with, how I'm spending my time, where I'm spending my energy, and I'm voting every moment of every day. This is not a day that we should hang our hats on as something that will change time or make such a big, a saving or a destruction of the country or the planet. That is all up to us to do every single day and every single moment. I would invite you to turn off your phones, to turn off the TV, to not watch any election coverage, any news. And I would invite you to get into nature, to get into your body, to connect with your higher wisdom, and whatever that looks like for you. Regardless of how you want this to come, how you want the outcome to be, pray for the highest healing for humanity, for the collective. Pray for the highest outcome. Surrender your own personality wants. Work through the fears and the fight and the anger that you have within you, because it's not actually about that. This is a huge sideshow distracting us from what's actually important, which is this and this and this. Get into your body, breathe, get in nature, and ask to be shown the truth If you want to see it, it is there to be seen, and you will be brought the information, and it will be terrible. Let me tell you, the cognitive dissonance of awakening within this reality is just a fucking nightmare. But if you want to wake up, it is there, it is available, and you don't have to look for it. You just connect back in. You say, Spirit, higher wisdom, God, source, divine, whatever you want to call it, show me what I need to see at this moment to return to my divinity, to return to divine truth. Show me what I need for the highest healing, for the highest awakening, for me to return to me, and you will be shown. And it might be painful, and that is okay, because on the other side of that pain, after you move through it, you have to actually move through it and feel through it and process and grieve and all the things. After you move through it, it is freedom and light and joy and the capacity to live in such a fundamentally different way on the outside of all the distraction, of all the dissension, of all the divisiveness. That is all a game to keep us preoccupied, to keep us disconnected, to keep us out of here and out of our knowing. So turn off all the things. Vote with your dollars, vote with your time, vote with your energy, vote with your attention. Get into nature, get into your body, connect with your higher wisdom, and trust that it will all be so much better than you can possibly imagine, regardless of who wins. It will all be okay. And in order to make it okay faster, we each need to do this. It starts with us. It starts internally. Whatever you see happening out there, whatever angers you, fires you up out there, go within first. Clean it up in here. And then you will be given inspired actions to take from that place. Trust, surrender, pray. And know that it will all be okay. Always, in all ways.